Hey everyone, welcome back to Topher Drives, where this week I've been daily driving this 2026 Toyota Prius plug-in hybrid, a car that was renamed somewhere within the last few years of the 5th generation Prius. This used to be called the Prius Prime, and I liked that it was called the Prime because it was a little bit unique and they had that fun cursive badge on the back. But anyway, it's now the Prius PHEV, as you can see, the new badge here, which is much less exciting. But this has got a couple of new things for 2026, chief among which, as I'm sure all of you have noticed, is the color. You used to have to go to New York City or Chicago to see a yellow Prius. Now you can just go to the dealership and buy one yourself. A lot of us were disappointed actually when Toyota showed the concept 5th gen Prius in yellow and then didn't offer it to consumers, but finally they've gotten it together for 2026 and they now offer what is called Karashi, which is Japanese for spicy mustard. And I think that's the perfect description of this color. It's a little bit of a unique yellow. I think it's got some pearl to it as well. It does, as I hope you can see from this beautiful sun in downtown Ann Arbor today. But additionally, this is the new trim level that we have for 2026. This is called the XSE Nightshade, which, as I'm sure you could also assume, just means that they've blacked out many things on the car. So we have black wheels, black mirror caps, and black badges. And we have these 19-inch wheels since this is the XSE. This is based off just the regular XSE, which is kind of the mid-grade here for the Prius PHEV. I keep wanting to call it the Prius Prime. It's not called that anymore. Clock Tower singing the song of its people. But one of the downsides here of the black wheels is when somebody curbs it, it's much more obvious. So whoever had this before me, or one of the people that had this before me, had a little bit of an oopsie with the curb. But anyway, my favorite part actually of the Prius plug-in hybrid is the back, because you get clear taillights. Check this out. It's so nice to be back in Michigan. I've spent much time in California and Quebec, and I missed my clock tower interrupting me during my during my parking structure videos. But anyway, I've always liked the 5th gen Prius. I got to see this before anyone else. Toyota brought me into a room with no windows back in 2022, took my phone away and pulled the sheet off this thing, and it's kind of had a special place in my heart ever since. Now the plug-in's a little bit weird and it's kind of hard to justify. There are weird things about this because it's more expensive than the regular Prius. It's heavier than the regular Prius, and it's less efficient. So it's a little bit of a head scratcher, but obviously the plug-in hybrid has its own market of people that prefer this car, because with the plug-in you get 39 miles of all electric range. So this has a 13.6 kilowatt hour battery supplementing the 2-liter M20A up front, driving the front wheels through a CVT. Combined power output is 220 horsepower. So it's actually kind of zesty for a Prius. The regular one has to make do with only 194. So this will actually scoot. You could probably hurt some feelings of like V6 chargers from lights. In fact, I kept up with a V6 charger on an entrance ramp yesterday, and it was the best thing ever. Are you done? It's done. What time is it? Oh, it's noon. That's why. I'm like, why was it just going off? Because it's noon. That would make sense. But anyway, this is about $5,000 more expensive across the board. So this XSE Nightshade trim starts at $37,000, as tested today, $39 grand. An equivalent non-plug-in Prius, how many times am I going to call this a Prime today, would be about $34,000 as tested. And as far as the other metrics that do seem to be disadvantages for the plug-in, this is rated at 48 MPG combined, whereas the regular front-wheel drive Prius is rated at 52 MPG combined. This weighs about 3,500 pounds. The regular Prius is just under 3,200 pounds. So I would say that this is really only for the certain type of person that has a bit of their commute in the city, or they have a very short commute to work where they're able to just use the EV mode, because this is good for up to 84 miles an hour. So you can do the highway and stuff in full electric mode. But that's why I've come to the city today, to kind of show off the advantages of the Prius plug-in hybrid. So today we're going to show you a bit of what this is like to live with. We're going to take this from the city to the kind of sub-city. We're going to stop at the grocery store, then we'll take it on the highway, then we'll take it around our little performance loop, and we'll give you kind of a day in the life here, a simple day in the life with the 2026 Toyota Prius plug-in hybrid. So let's start poking around this. Obviously, this is quite striking now in its 5th generation. I think it looks fantastic. It looks a bit like a computer mouse, but in a good way. It's kind of sporty, and the Prius prior to this generation was never really that great to look at. I mean, it never really did anything for me, but this I think looks fantastic. People obviously have owned these now for like 3 or 4 years, and they're starting to lower them and put wheels on them, and they really, really look the business. I think this in yellow with the clear taillights, lowered on some wheels, would be proper. We'll start in the trunk, which is a bit more of a liftback design, where you can see I have a prop with me today, but actually because I'm donating this, I'm getting rid of it, so it just kind of had to come with me as part of my journey today as kind of a side quest, but I figured it would kind of demonstrate the room here in the back. Nice little zebra suitcase. Hopefully somebody can get some use out of that. But anyway, you can see the Prius is a small car. And here's the thing. I have no problem with small cars. I think they have a time and a place, one of which could be right now. As a commuter car, you don't need a ton of room. And I think this is a common misconception with people, is they think they need the RAV4. They think they need the CHR. They think they need the Highlander. I don't know. The Highlander, you probably have some kids if you're buying that. But I feel like a lot of people that buy the RAV4 hybrid could just have the Prius and they'd be fine. This is a carry-on sized bag. You can see it takes up about 40% of the trunk, but that's okay. You know, you've got room for other stuff back here. If you're traveling with more than you and your spouse, you might have some trouble, but if there's a will, there's a way. Just put that out of here for a second because I want to show underneath the floor. There are just so many things in the way. All right, let's move the charging cable over as well. What do we have? Just some foam. Couple extra little cubbies to put stuff back here. Actually, that reminds me, this is quite clever as well. They've made this bag in such a way to where it shouldn't slide around and be irritating in the back like this suitcase is going to be for our drive, so I apologize for that right now. But speaking of the charging cable, I mentioned this has a 13.6 kilowatt hour battery. It's got 39 miles of electric range, but if you plug it in at your house, you can do obviously level 1 or level 2 charging. On level 2, this will go from 0 to 100% in 4 hours, so plenty of time. You could charge it twice overnight if you wanted to. That's quite convenient. Let's show you under the hood this M20A 2-liter naturally aspirated 4-cylinder, which is actually the same exact engine you get in just the regular Prius, but there are some extra things attached to it here with the Prius plug-in. This is one of the lightest hoods I've ever felt, and it has, I always like to say, Lexus IS300 style hood prop here. And there's the M20A kind of shoehorned into this tiny little engine compartment. But again, 220 combined horsepower. And since this is a Toyota hybrid product, they don't release a combined torque number. So the only thing I can tell you is that this engine on itself makes 139 pound-feet of torque. So combined torque is probably somewhere in the high 100s, low 200s range. It does feel quite torquey because you've got that electric motor there. And, you know, 220 horsepower, even in a car that weighs 3,500 pounds, is usually pretty decent. So I mentioned this is rated 48 combined. It is rated at 50 MPG in the city. So we're going to see if we can match that today. We're going to just run in EV mode, and then we'll switch it to hybrid mode once we're on the highway and just do a little bit of a combined test and see what this is able to do. Okay, we briefly showed you the wheels, but I want to talk tires before we jump in the car. Now this is a Michelin Primacy All Season, our favorite little eco tire. It's a 195/50R19, which is such a funny size, narrow and tall, but hey, at least we have that 50-section sidewall on this, which will benefit our ride and hopefully eliminate some of the intrusion over potholes. But nice black wheel on this, XSE Nightshade, yeah, 195-section tire on a 19-inch wheel. Who else uses this? I doubt there are many other cars. They're so funny to look at from the back because it's such a skinny tire, but hey, they have to be efficient somehow. So this is actually quite an appealing angle of this car. Let's show you the back seat, which you have to get to via these electronic door handles on the outside, but Toyota does give you a manual release. If for some reason you can't get in, you can use this button there. So there you go. In the back, you can see your first look at our black Softex, which is your only choice in the XSE Nightshade trim. You can still hear a little bit of what's going on outside, but anyway, in the back, you know, I always remembered these being horribly cramped, but this is fine. At 5'11", sat behind myself, I've got enough legroom. Headroom is where you start to get a little bit iffy, but I've got probably another inch, so you could be up to 6 feet back here, and if you slouched, you could probably be 6'2" or 6'3", and you'd be okay. We made the joke earlier about yellow Priuses being in New York and Chicago, obviously, as taxis, and I don't know that I've seen any new Priuses as taxis. I'm sure they exist because companies are still buying Prii to be in their taxi fleets, and you know what? I think this is okay as a taxi because think about it. You're never really in a taxi for more than like 15, 20 minutes. So pretty much anybody, I think, could survive back here for a small amount of time, or even as like an Uber. If you're an Uber driver, this would be a nice car to kind of putz around the city. Middle seat is fine, actually. You've got a little bit of a hump here for, I suspect, the exhaust, but it does okay. How about that? Not cramped in the back of a 5th gen Prius. Materials overall, I mean, you can look at this door panel and it kind of tells the story. The black interior is the only option on the Nightshade, and it's a little bit boring. I mean, you've got a little bit of squishy kind of soft text here on the door panel. Otherwise, it's kind of just scratchy plastic and boring looking, but you do at least get some perforations here and some gray, looks like light gray stitching to kind of add some dimension. And I like the way these seats look. You've got lumbar adjust and stuff. They're obviously fully power. Actually, I don't think the passenger seat is power, but we'll check. I haven't sat over here yet, so I'm not sure. I think I watched Emily use a slider on it yesterday. Yeah, it's manual. Okay. Anyway. One of these days I'm gonna fall on this. This is so... Look at this. It's not like it's frozen, it's just wet, and I can like basically skate on this structure. Okay, get back to the Prius. Let's get in. Ugh. Ingress and egress is okay. This does sit a little bit low down, so you sometimes have to make the boomer sound getting in, but you are reminded that you're not in a boomer car when you get in because of all the millennial touches in here. For instance, this is not just a wireless charger, it is a hashtag wireless charger. And then, if that's not enough, you can also reveal the hashtag, oh, there it is, the hashtag hidden compartment. I made a joke the last time I was driving one of these that there's obviously lots of millennial influence in here with the cheesy hashtag stuff, and there were some millennials in my comments that actually got offended. I'm not making fun of you guys. I think this is actually quite fun because we talk about cars being boring. Give me something to be like, oh, haha, that's actually pretty funny. And you can actually use the hashtag hidden compartment for your phone. I was using it for my hashtag parking ticket, but I had to move that up to the hashtag sun visor for exiting the structure here momentarily. But anyway, let's fire this up and we'll show you some of the tech inside. Normal sort of Toyota bings and bongs there. Starting up, we have this 12.3-inch infotainment system, which has wireless CarPlay and Android Auto. Biggest disappointment with this XSE Nightshade trim is that you don't get the JBL sound system or even the option to spec it. So this just has the base, I want to say 6-speaker, 246, but the JBL gets you the extra tweeters there on the A-pillars, and then it gets you a sub, so I assume it's 9 speakers. I don't know if they count the sub, 8 or 9 speakers. We have these, oh, I can't believe I forgot to show this, in the back seat. You have these individual sunroof shades for the front and the back. So perfect demonstration. If you're a taxi driver, you want to have yourself shaded up here, but your rear passengers want some light. They are able to adjust that themselves with that shade. Love to see it. And then up here, I mean, it's just normal 5th gen Prius stuff. We've seen this interior a ton of times. This is actually the 3rd 5th gen Prius we've driven here on Topher Drives, and it's my favorite because it's the first one we've driven that's yellow. Cool dashboard trim here, and this strip of blue ambient lighting that I can't figure out how to turn off or change the color of. I think because you can't do either of those things. So hopefully you like blue. That's your choice. I'm annoyed by it because the car's yellow. I want that to be yellow too, to kind of match the theme. Otherwise, we have the LC500 style shifter, which has been behaving itself this week. And then we have a console with 2 USB-C ports to supplement your 2 USB-C ports that are up on top of the hashtag hidden compartment. Fully independent climate control panel, that works great. The heated passenger seat is on for some reason. And then this mirror, I suspect is dimming because it doesn't have a thing to flip itself. But you do have 3 buttons for HomeLink to open your garage. Okay, let's start driving this. I am going to leave this in EV mode. Now, when you start a Prius plug-in, it always defaults to EV mode because we have some charge. It's at 72% right now, so that should be good for, what, just under 30 miles of range. Plenty for what we need today. I am going to reset our fuel economy, which I'm going to have to put this into hybrid mode. Let's go back into CarPlay. We're good here. Go back to our regular cluster design. I think that's it. I think we're good. Into reverse, you can see no 360 camera, and the reverse camera quality is actually not that great either. Luckily, the Prius is a small car. I'm not excusing that it doesn't have a 360 camera because we just drove the Kia K4 hatchback, which was $6,000 cheaper than this, and it had a 360 camera. So, just some things to consider. You've also got B mode on this. If you guys ever watched Roadkill, you'd remember they destroyed that second gen Prius, and they were like trying to figure out how to drive it, and they were like, what's B? And then I think Finnegan was like, is it badass mode or something? It was so funny, but I always think of that now when I put something in B mode. I'm like, yeah, I'm putting it in badass mode. Anyway, we're gonna do probably about the first half of this video in just electric mode, which is good because something that I often comment on is the volume level of this M20 and really any Toyota naturally aspirated 4-cylinder hybrid setup, because they're just a little bit grainy. They're a little bit buzzy and drony and loud. I mean, there's really no other way to put it. So another advantage of the Prius plug-in is that you're able to just drive around in pure electricity and not have to listen to the buzzy 4-cylinder. So I like it in that way. Is it worth the extra $5 grand? I'm not sure, but I'll let you all decide that. Okay, let's get this wound down. Now, visibility is a little strange. Obviously, forward-facing, straight-on front, easy to see because the windshield is massive. The only times you struggle a bit is kind of placing the corners of this because it's so low slung. And then these A-pillars are a little bit thick as well, so it's sometimes hard to see out of your like peripheral in this car. So you sometimes just have to think about it a little bit more. But maneuverability is fantastic. The steering in this is so light. And it's kind of darty too. It's honestly fun to drive this around a city especially.
Please insert your ticket with the barcode facing up.
Yes, sir.
Or scan your monthly card.
No, sir.
Thank you for your business.
You can see we have parking sensors. Oh, we'll let Meemaw go across here. Go ahead. You're welcome. Oh, she likes the Prius too, I think. Okay, let's pull this out onto the city streets of Ann Arbor, again, in full electric mode. How about that? And obviously, since this is an Toyota, all of the inputs are exactly what you'd expect. Toyota has had literal decades to perfect these Priuses, and they have. Don't like having to go on mustard, but sometimes you don't have a choice. At least my car is mustard. Spicy mustard colored. But obviously, yeah, throttle input, very linear, very natural, easy to adapt to. Brake pedal feels great as well. And we talked a little bit about steering being light, but I think the coolest thing about the steering in this car is the steering wheel, because it's so small. It kind of simulates the agility and the quickness of being able to kind of get this around cities, which that's what this car is for. You know, this is a city car through and through. That is its primary purpose, especially the Prime, having this 39 miles of electric range, being able to kind of just zip you around the city very quickly and very efficiently. Turn signals are good. Nice ka-thunk to the switches. And unlike a regular Prius, this will never cut into its hybrid engine unless you manually put this into hybrid mode with this physical button down here on the right. Or you can put it in auto, but I've got it locked into EV mode right now because I want to use this percentage. And you can floor this completely. I want to say the electric motor itself makes about 150 horsepower, give or take. So you've got plenty of power to get yourself off the line in a very normal manner if you're in somewhere where you can take off a little bit faster than, you know, the inner city like we're in right now. Again, apologies for the suitcase rattling in the back. This is why I don't usually have things in the car, because they just drive me nuts. One of the things I hate the most in life is things rattling in cars. It's my people. Check it out. yellow. I am also yellow. Anyway, though, this road is good to test ride quality, which in the Prius plug-in is good because we've got the 50-section sidewall, but also, you know, this car is styled to look sporty. I hate the word sporty, but they've given it kind of an exuberant exterior styling for the 5th generation, but they've still kept its very sort of utilitarian driving styles. So the ride quality is great. I have no complaints with it. It's pretty supple. It's not floaty like you'd get in like a... God, could you imagine if Lexus made a version of this? They brought the CT back. That'd be sick. But it's not floaty like you get in a luxury car, but it does the trick. I can't imagine complaining about the ride in this car. It is good. I just whisper myself off the line. Come to a stop. We'll use some regen in B mode. We have 3 levels of B mode. I don't know how to get it into the other levels. It just stays in level 1. Someone in the comments can tell me. There's not so much regen where I really find it a huge advantage to drive in B, like I would with a Volvo plug-in hybrid, but it is there for if you want to do it. It might be battery percentage based. You might have to deplete the battery some to get it into level 2 or level 3. With this being full electric, you do hear a bit more of the road noise because you're not listening to the 2-liter strain itself up to 50 miles an hour, but it's not offensively loud in here. I mean, it's pretty loud. You know, like you hear the imperfections. Wind noise in this is not too bad, but it's all just sort of this crummy road noise that comes through. And this car it's almost 40 grand, so I feel like I'm pretty justified in saying I do wish this was a bit quieter. I wish I didn't have a stupid zebra suitcase in the back. That's flat out. There you go, you see? You can hear a little bit of that electric motor whirring itself up to speed. Yeah. We're actually coming up on another 5th gen Prius up here, if I'm seeing that correctly. So, okay, let's talk ergonomics, because that's kind of one of the most awkward things with this new Prius, is kind of the way that the dashboard, the steering wheel, and the console all exist. Now, I was actually just in LA driving the new CHR, very similar setup, BZ Woodland. They all sort of employ this same sort of corporate design language for the efficient Toyota. You kind of either love it or you hate it with this car, because you always have to find this very delicate balance between having the steering wheel in your lap and having the steering wheel blocking the gauge cluster. All right, I want to show this here. We have a Trueno badge on this. Oh yeah, and the guy's vaping. Okay, well, this is actually a good time to show off. That's what the red taillights look like on the regular hybrid Prius. Clear taillights are so much cooler. I think even if I had the regular Prius, I'd swap on some plug-in taillights. Anyway, though, it's a manual adjuster. You move this up and down, but if you move it, this is where I can happily see the cluster, okay? And the steering wheel is basically touching my leg, so I like to have it somewhere about there. But then it means that I can't see my mileage or my range or my battery percentage. So again, just kind of a delicate balance. I don't know. It's cool, the feeling that this gives you, because it feels a bit like a space pod, you know, you're kind of just very like nestled into this car. But at the same time, it can feel a little bit cramped at times. Only other thing I don't like ergonomically is the center console. Now, I understand that in order to have the hidden compartment and these cup holders here and this shifter that's very well within reach, it kind of has to be built out like this. But my leg rests against it, and it's very hard plastic. So if you're somebody that's even a little bit taller than me, your leg is kind of always going to be resting on this. I just wish maybe it had some padding. I want to see how many generations of Prius we can find in this Whole Foods parking lot right now. I suspect it'll be more than one. Okay, we've got a 4th gen right here on the end. Very nice in silver. We have a 3rd gen Prius V. That's a unique one. Look at that. That's like the wagon version of the Prius that they made. That might be it. We might be done. we're gonna go around the corner here. Oh, there is a 5th gen over there as well. Okay, so we're represented. So we're at least the 4th Prius to be in this parking lot right now. Where do we want to park? How about we park next to this classic Lexus ES? Get ourselves nice and cozy in here. We'll use this backup camera. I did not set that up very well, but this is such a small car, it's easy to make kind of constant corrections there. Into park, parking brake will automatically apply, and power button is very easy to see, not blocked, I think because the steering wheel is quite small, so you're able to see that with no problem. But we can see spacing here in a spot, which, have I gotten into it straight? Yes, I have. These are pretty small spots in this lot, and the Prius fits in here with no problem, though. Look at the sizing next to this ES. It's actually like remarkably similar. I'm gonna run into the grocery store, get some stuff, and then we'll hit the highway and wrap this one up. Walking back up to the Prius with 2 bags of groceries. One of the most fun parts about this is its unlock chime, which kind of sounds like the first 2 notes to Jingle Bells, I think is what I said in my last video. But if the car is still locked, you do have proxy key there. These don't have proxy key, but let's see if it unlocked the rear. It did. So we can see, okay, we might have to move some things around back here. We can move the charging cable. Actually, why don't we leave the charging cable where it's at, because I think this might actually be just about perfect to keep everything wedged. So there you go, the back of the 5th gen Prius, good for the provided charging cable, 2 bags of groceries, and a carry-on suitcase. No problem. Do you think we could get this to play Jingle Bells if we did like an unlock and then a lock? A little bit of a delay. Jingle Bells. Okay, let's jump in and finish out the drive. We're gonna continue in EV mode until we get onto the highway. Okay, this is another bit of a real-world test going out this exit because it's pretty steep, so you have to make sure that you're angled correctly to use all of the available ground clearance. Here comes a 4th gen Prius. There you go. So usually I try to aim as close to the middle as I can and then angle right at the end. And we should be fine. I mean, this thing doesn't sit like egregiously low to the ground, so I think we'll be fine. And we shouldn't scrape the front of this. Okay, aim for the middle, angle at the end. Perfect. No scrapage. Obviously, that is something that you have to think about if you're in a car this size. If I was in a RAV4, I'd just bomb right down it and it wouldn't really matter. But you know what? I think that's okay because it makes you a little bit more disciplined while driving, makes you pay more attention. All right, well, as we make our way to the highway here, why don't we do a sound system test here on this base Prius sound system. This little volume adjuster here, and then you've got the volume knob over here, more so for the passenger or the driver. I can reach it in this car. Alright, so as you can see there, not the best sound system. I mean, this is just base level stuff, and as far as I know, it's still the same speakers that you would get with the JBL. The JBL just adds more, so you get the tweeters and then you get the sub. Also, left this in EV mode to merge just so you guys could see that it is possible. Unfortunately, nobody else today is in any sort of rush. We're going to put this into hybrid mode. So we've now engaged the M20, the 2-liter. Let's go for a pass. There you go. I've just woken up the engine. I'm now forcing it to run a marathon. Up to 75 miles an hour there. It does fine. And we'll show you some more performance stuff, obviously, when we get off the highway here. But this is, in my mind, when you would engage the engine. When you're on the highway, when you don't want to very quickly deplete this electric range, it just makes more sense to use the fuel here and save the EV for when you're in a city setting. But anyway, let's give you a second to observe our NVH. For as slippery as this car is, there is actually quite a bit of wind noise here on the highway. You don't really notice this until you're up over like 55 miles an hour. You start getting some of the wind noise. But able to use that combined 220 horsepower here to finish our merge, but this is a super long ramp, so usually you're kind of just gradually up to 70 before you are merging here. This just turns into a lane here on the right anyway. So you guys can hear kind of the strain from that 2-liter. Harder to tell when you're on the highway because you've got other noises going on. But anyway, though, let's talk about other ergonomics here on the highway. Positioning of your elbows is pretty even. However, center console is hard as a rock. It's got a little coating of Softex on, or whatever they call it. There's synthetic leather over the top of it, but underneath there's no padding whatsoever. Door panel's got a little bit of padding, so that's nice for the left elbow, but right elbow is not going to be very comfortable. Additionally, we talked about this console sitting out a little bit far, so there are some kind of uncomfortable resting places here for your extremities. But let's talk about like cruise control and stuff like that, which is all very easy. It's here on the steering wheel, and it's activated with the push of one button. You can go through your different cruise control modes. I've got this in adaptive right now to show off the functionality of that, though I am having to lift up to see my following distance, which you can apply, or which you can change here on the steering wheel with this physical button. You can also turn on your lane keep assist. Pretty decent drive rates. The only thing I found was that it did seem a little bit nervous upon coming up to traffic and going around. You do sometimes feel like you're impeding traffic a bit, but for the most part, the system seems to do what it's intended to, and it's also very easy to adjust everything. So kudos to Toyota there. Let's check on our fuel economy, 65.6 MPG. Curious to see what this is like after we get off the highway, because it should be about a 50-50 split as far as mileage goes for EV and ICE. All right, let's get off the highway here, and we'll take this through somewhat of our little performance section. We'll hit a couple corners, and we'll show you what acceleration is like with this Prius plug-in. But overall, I mean, we can kind of wrap things up here. I think this version of the Prius, which has only existed actually for 3 generations, 3, 4, and 5, it only makes sense for a portion of the buyers that would have already been buying a Prius. I think this kind of markets to a separate group of people because, like we said in the beginning, it's on paper, it's less efficient, it's heavier, it's more expensive. So it's a little bit less attractive to somebody that just wants the Prius as a Prius. But if you want the Prius as a little bit more of an elevated experience, you know, like something that you find in like a Volvo, or who else does plugins? I guess there are some Lexus plugins as well. I don't know. I just don't know that it fully makes sense from an efficiency standpoint. But if you're somebody like me that likes a little bit of extra performance and clear taillights, then this may be the Prius for you. And we'll show you some of that performance here. But no, jokes aside, I mean, there are obviously ways to justify this car and ways to... Jeez, why are we sitting at a green light? There are ways to justify it, and there are ways to say that, hey, this doesn't really make as much sense as a regular Prius. And that's why it exists, I suppose. You know, it's just another option for other people that do other stuff. So never going to argue with or complain about more options on the market for people that need certain vehicles to fit their lifestyles. So It's kind of just, if it makes sense for you, it makes sense for you. If it doesn't, it doesn't. And if it doesn't, then Toyota will happily sell you a regular front-wheel drive or all-wheel drive Prius. Just swap on a set of clear taillights and you'll be set. All right. I don't want to go behind those stinky trucks, so we're going to go this way, and we're going to give you a bit of an acceleration here, do a bit of a 0 to 60. All right, let's bring this to a halt. Let's bump it up into sport mode, because we do actually have drive modes here, which I failed to mention earlier, so I'm sorry. And then this is a CVT, so I'm just going to mat the throttle, and we'll get it off the line. There you go. There's 60. My butt tells me that's about a 7-second 0 to 60, which is moving for a Prius. That is for sure. It's funny to think of this car in this way, where it's actually kind of quick these days, because early Prii. You say Priuses or you say Prii? Never really know what to say. Early Priuses, very slow, very, very slow. So never really think of them in the way of performance. But now you can make passes with good confidence. And we'll take this around the corner and try not to spill every ounce of my groceries into the back seat. Coming in into the brakes, which feel pretty good, even at high speeds. Tires complaining there a little bit, but honestly the chassis in this car is pretty well composed. I don't think I would ever expect a Prius to handle any better than that. So there you go. There's living with a Toyota Prius plug-in. Man, it was so much more fun to call this the Prius Prime, and easier because it was less syllables. Oh, interesting. What if it turn on the...
I'm sorry, I could not find the answer to your question.
You say, hey Prius. Prius. How did I activate that? I have no idea how I activated that, but anyway. Ending out today's trip at 51.7 MPG between our little electric city run and the highway and performance section, doing just over the EPA's estimate for city here on the Prius plug-in. Get it into a spot in here, and that will be a wrap on today's video. Thank you guys all so much for watching, and I hope you've had some interest in this Prius, even though this is the third time we've done one of these now. But I don't think we've started either of the other ones downtown. We've started them in this parking lot, so hey, we had a little bit of a difference. For today's video, I keep burping up my breakfast, so apologies there. All settings are successfully loaded. Thank you so much. Let's power this off and give you one last look at the exterior at the Karashi. It really is a good looking car. Like, I seriously love the looks of this new Prius. I don't love when they have the silly aero covers on them for the base model car, but you know, it's the price you have to pay if you want to be efficient. And this one looks the business, but you lose some range. But let me know in the comments, would you guys get a regular Prius or would you get the plug-in? Curious your thoughts on that and how it would kind of work for your life. If you own one of these, would love to hear from you as well on how it's been. If you've had one since 2023, how's the ownership experience been for you? But that's going to do it for me today. The yellow Prius finally exists. All right, guys, we'll see you in the next one. Take care.